Hey guys, it's Jack Cypher here. Like the title suggests, today we're going to be discussing Rob Lucci. Now, Rob Lucci is one of the series' most iconic villains, as well as just generally one of the most badass characters in One Piece. He's cool, stoic, ruthless, has an amazing power, not to mention a pet pigeon. How can we not love him? Now, Lucci has just had a re-emergence quite recently in the manga, so I will be talking about pretty up-to-date manga events, but that won't be till much later on in the video, and I'll definitely drop a spoiler warning when I start talking about the manga-only events. But let's get right into the video and start discussing just how strong is Lucci. Rob Lucci is a member of CP9, which is a secret group of elite assassins that work for the world government. Essentially, they're top-tier spies. The way I've always interpreted it is that the CP groups from CP1 to CP8 are essentially like how should we say it, the CIA in America. Everyone knows that they exist, but CP9 is that group that there's no records of. That secret organization that's every conspiracist's wet dream. They're specifically only used for top missions, like infiltrating Water 7 to try and suss out and acquire the ancient weapon Pluton. Lucci was the leader of CP9. Now in Enies lobby, Oda does something interesting. He creates power levels for the CP9 agents, called Doriki, I believe it's how it's pronounced. Either way, that's what I'm going with. Now to give you an idea of what these power levels mean, a normal marine foot soldier has a score of about 10 Doriki points, and Lucci has a Doriki of 4,000. Now that is the highest Doriki that has ever been seen in CP9, and it's nearly double what the next power level is, which is Kaku's. Now, just a quick little side note here, and this is probably going to trigger a lot of Zoro fans. It's interesting that in terms of power levels, and I say that in quotation marks, that the order is kind of representing Lucci as twice as strong as Kaku. And Zoro is the one that fights Kaku and struggles quite a bit against him. It's not the most he's ever struggled, but it's nowhere near an easy fight. I don't think you'd be wrong to assume that they're fairly relative, with Zoro just being that little bit stronger. But it makes me wonder about Enies lobby Zoro versus Enies lobby Luffy. Would Luffy stomp here? Question mark? I know there are some people out there that think Zoro is stronger than Luffy. But I don't know, I feel like Oda was trying to say something here. And please, Zoro fans, don't click off. But anyway, let's get back onto the Doriki. It only scales the Roku Shiki techniques, which translates to the 6 powers. Now, I'll get into the 6 powers in a little bit. While I'm bringing this up, it's because power levels don't get influenced by the devil fruits. They're strictly just the Roku Shiki techniques and the user's proficiency in them. So Rob Lucci literally has a 4,000 Doriki in just his base form, which is insane, because there's no way to quantify how much stronger Zoan users get when they enter their animal forms. But honestly, for me, it wouldn't surprise me if there was at least 2 times in strength. I feel like it would have to be quite significant, otherwise there'd be no real point going into that form if it only gives you a little bit of a power-up. Now, let's get into Rob Lucci's Roku Shiki techniques. Now, I won't go hugely in depth about what each technique entails, because I do plan on making a whole video based on the Roku Shiki techniques, like I did with my most recent Devil Fruit video. Definitely go check that one out, guys. But I'll quickly go over what each technique is called. There's the Soru or Shave technique that grants super speed, the Tekai or Iron Body technique that allows you to harden your body like iron, the Geppo or Moonwalk technique that allows you to kick the air so hard that you can propel yourself into the sky, the Shigen or the finger pistol technique, which like the name suggests, allows you to turn your fingers into unstoppable weapons that can pierce through flesh with ease, the Kamiei or the paper art technique, which allows you to contort your body in unnatural ways to avoid attacks, And probably the most cool looking one, the Run Kyakyu, or the Tempest Kick technique, that shoots out highly pressurized air slashes at your opponents that are capable of cutting through iron like butter. Now, there is a secret 7th ability called the Rokugan that only Lucci has ever been shown to use. You can only use it if you've completely mastered the previous 6 abilities, which is probably the main reason why no one else in CP9 can use it. I do imagine, though, that the current Kaku would probably be able to use it, which might be interesting to see because we usually only see him fight with swords, so it'd be cool seeing him use a Rokugan. The way the technique works is by putting your fists together, you punch someone and it creates a massive shockwave. This attack is powerful enough to significantly injure Luffy, who is usually immune to blunt attacks like this. It also seems to be quite draining on Lucci because he's always panting afterwards. Now, those are the powers of the Roku Shiki, but the CP9 agents sometimes put their own spin on these regular powers, and Rob Lucci is no exception. He has a technique called Kamisori, literally meaning razor, which is a combination of Geppo and Soru, where he speeds up his Geppo to the point that he can't be seen. All you do see is a jagged zigzag motion in the air, giving it its name, and it allows for incredible mobility and speed. He also has a few variations of the Shigun technique, one being called the Yellow Lotus, which is a rapid-fire barrage of the finger pistol. He's even so proficient with it that he can use his finger pistol technique from a distance with his flying finger pistol sting. Basically, by flicking his finger, it causes enough pressure to launch itself through the air and attack an opponent. It was so powerful that it could even pierce Luffy. He also has an interesting Kami-A ability called Life Return, where he slims down his massive bulk, causing him to be more agile and swift, giving him more speed and agility, and making it much harder for him to be hit. He can cancel this move at any time and go back to his bulky brute form. He also has 2 really deadly Tempest Kick abilities, known as Leopard's Tail and Victory Bird. The Victory Bird one especially was powerful enough to cut right through a Navy Marine vessel with ease. He cut through it like paper. With these variations of his 6 powers, not to mention the deadly 7th power known as the Six King Gun, Lucci is a deadly opponent with just these abilities, especially in close range. And this isn't even getting into his Devil Fruit or Haki. And his 6 powers really do complement his Devil Fruit Zoan ability really well. And since we're talking about it, let's bring it up. Lucci ate the cat fruit model leopard, and like the name suggests, it grants him the power to turn into a massive hulking leopard that easily dwarfs over Luffy and the others. And like we mentioned in my Devil Fruit video, he's a carnivorous Zoan, which is implied to be much more deadly than just an ordinary Zoan type fruit, granting Lucci amazing strength and incredible speed, being able to easily one-shot both Luffy and Zoro. And keep in mind, this Luffy and Zoro have just been defeating characters like Crocodile, Daz Bones, Bellamy, even someone as powerful as Eneru. Now, of course, Luffy's victories over Eneru and Crocodile weren't just as straightforward as him just beating the shit out of them, but still, for Lucci to be able to so easily handle them was scary to see. All the way up until this point, this is probably the quickest that those two have ever been dispatched. Of course, Luffy lost his fight really badly against Aokiji, but even then, Aokiji was humouring Luffy enough to actually have somewhat of a short fight with him. Lucci just turned around, finger pistoled him in his leopard form, and then just completely threw him right out of the building, giving him a nice little trip over Water 7. Zoro's swords were also completely incapable of cutting through Lucci's iron body, just showing that that technique isn't just regular iron, and it's much stronger despite its name. Lucci then proceeds to kick Zoro straight into next week. He also dispatched Frankie with ease, just in his human form. And this was a Frankie that was pushing back Bluno, a character that was giving Luffy difficulty. But Lucci was just like a not today mate and dealt with him like no issue. Now, I'm not going to get into his Haki abilities until we get more into the post-time skip. So, I want to talk more about what happened at Enies lobby. We get the amazing fight between Luffy and Lucci. A lot of people reckon this is the best fight pre-time skip. Some even making the argument that it's the best fight in One Piece. And I can see why. This was a fucking spectacular fight. This is a Luffy that has now gained Gear 2nd and Gear 3rd. Gear 2nd being enough to completely overwhelm Bluno, someone Luffy was struggling with before acquiring these abilities. Gear 2nd proved just enough to be able to take on Lucci, but as time went on, it did seem like Lucci was getting the better of Luffy in his Gear 2nd state. But Luffy wanted to turn the tables, so he went into his Gear 3rd state, the first time we are properly shown it in the show, and with it he was able to cause serious damage to Lucci, but it just wasn't enough. Despite this power increase, he wasn't able to fully take out Lucci, and with some clever maneuvering, Lucci was able to get back into the fight. Now, while we're talking about this fight, we'll talk about really the only time we mainly get to see Lucci use the Six King pistol. This is such a powerful and crazy move, definitely the strongest move in Lucci's arsenal. Luffy being able to survive 2 of these attacks is an insane feat, because I reckon this move is as powerful as the rejectiles back on Skypiea, and I would even probably go as far to say it's even stronger than that. And one of those rejectiles was capable enough to incapacitate Eneru, fucking god himself. Of course, thanks to some hacks, Eneru was able to get up from that, but still, it just goes to show how powerful of a technique it is. I'm not going to go too much more into this fight, because this video itself is mainly talking about Lucci's powers and abilities and how strong he is. And this fight is just too good to ruin, too good to get into without doing a whole video on the topic. So basically, you all know what happens. Lucci gets defeated here. But thanks to the help of Bluno, they were able to survive the Buster Call on Enies lobby. Lucci went on to get stronger over the 2-year time skip, with Lucci and Kaku even being able to join CP0. And it seems like Lucci is quite high up in CP0, giving out orders. I imagine Stussy was the main leader of CP0, but it did look like Lucci could have been second in command or a similar position to that, which is an incredible feat. However, we don't really know the pecking order of CP0 and how it all operates. We know the ones wearing the masks are higher up than the others, but I don't think it's ever been stated that for there to actually be a true leader, and who knows, there might not be. But if I was to make a guess, it would be Stussy or Lucci. We know how important CP0 is, and how they're directly in charge of taking care of the Celestial Dragons. In terms of the world government, CP0 seems to be their strongest fighting force, other than potentially the Gorosei, making Lucci one of the most dangerous men in the entire world. And just really quickly, I won't spend too much time on it before we get more in depth of the post-time skip stuff, but when Lucci was just 13 years old, he was sent on a mission to resolve issues that were going on in a certain kingdom. And at the age of 13, he was able to kill 500 captured soldiers of that kingdom. Now, even though those soldiers were unarmed, to be able to kill so many so quickly at just 13 is insane. And when the pirates who had captured the soldiers came in and saw what Lucci had done, they fired on him. But thanks to his iron body, he was able to survive the huge cannon explosions, leaving only a few scars on his back, and then proceeded to easily dispatch the captain of that crew with his Yellow Lotus technique. Just going to show how powerful this man was at such a young age. Now, before we get into the time skip, I'm going to throw out a massive spoiler warning. If you're not up to date with the manga and don't want to be spoiled, skip to this time on the screen. We all good? Over the time skip, Lucci learned how to use Haki. The The form of haki we've seen the most from him is armament haki, which he used to take down Sentomaru, which is an impressive feat given Sentomaru's strong defensive armament haki. But Lucci's most impressive feat by far is fighting Luffy in his Super Saiyan Sun God Nika mode. Now this fight doesn't last very long, and it does result in Lucci being pretty much defeated. He didn't flat out lose, but it was clear that Lucci was no match for Luffy. But this is still an incredible feat. Even being able to contend with Luffy in the beginning of the fight is astronomical. Luffy at this stage is definitely in the top 10 strongest characters in One Piece. And I will specify characters that are currently alive. But he's easily top 10, so Lucci even somewhat being able to contend with Luffy is a great feat for him. We find out here that he's awakened his leopard fruit, and we've seen awakened Zoan fruits before back in Impel Down, but they weren't strong enough to resist the innate animal spirits. Lucci, on the other hand, was able to awaken his devil fruit with no ill consequences. His willpower was strong enough to subjugate the animal spirit. It also kind of looked like he might have had a better mastery over his awakening than Luffy, because it didn't seem to tax as much out of him. Because after his little scuffle with Luffy, he did get right back up and didn't seem any worse for wear compared to Luffy, who was notably exhausted. I would say that Lucci is probably the strongest warrior the world government has to offer, especially now that it looks like Stussy has defected. Lucci versus Stussy is a bit contentious, because Stussy did take him out, but it was with the help of Sea Prism Stone, and she did claim that taking him on in a straight fight would be stupid. The only people specifically in the world government that I could see being stronger than Lucci would potentially be the Gorosei, but without knowing if they're actual combatants, I feel comfortable enough saying that right now, currently, Lucci is the strongest warrior that the world government has. I'd be very interested in a matchup to see how he would go against someone like Zoro or Sanji. I reckon that would be a very interesting fight, as well as Lucci versing the commanders of the other Yonko. Of course, in the movies he did have a little scuffle with Sabo, and that would be another interesting fight to see in canon. Lucci versus Stussy round 2, no hold bars, would definitely be a good one. He's definitely in the top 20 strongest guys in the verse. But that pretty much wraps up everything about Rob Lucci and his powers. I think from now on I might be making more videos like this about explaining characters' powers and abilities more than just straight character analysis. I personally get more enjoyment out of it, and if you guys want to see more of me analyzing a person's personality and motivations rather than just specifically their power, then I would be open to doing stuff like that. Just let me know all of it down in the comments what you guys are liking and not liking. I feel like talking about their powers I just get more enjoyment from. And I really like speculating with myself, how powerful is this character? Could this character take on this character? I get a lot of enjoyment in it. I wouldn't call myself necessarily a power scaler though. But, like I said, if you want to see any verse battles between Lucci and any other One Piece characters, or even just any other characters outside of One Piece, let me know down in the comments, and if you've liked today's video, make sure to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day, guys. I've been Jack Cypher. Cypher out.